Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind. I'm Shira Lotzar. Happy to be your host this morning, and I'm joined by my colleagues Vern Schellinger and Alki Thompson, who are here to help me to support you all with your job search strategies. Alki is a corporate recruiter, not a corporate recruiter. He's a headhunter, but he works mostly in the corporate space. And Vern Schellinger is a former HR executive turned career coach, and I myself am a recruiter and a career coach. And so we have kind of perspectives on both sides of the hiring aisle, and I have lots of information to share. So this is really just an open Q&A. There's no presentation. It is whatever job search questions you have on your heart and mind, from resumes and interviewing to networking to salary to whatever is top of mind for you. So we're gonna have a little bit of a bigger crowd today, and that's good. We're happy to help. And then we'll also try to see if we can help you all with doing a little bit of networking, because you're all from different backgrounds, different sectors, but you never know where there can be some connections, okay? So with that, we'll go ahead and kick things off. Does anybody have a job search question that we can answer for you on any topic? Rebecca, Mark, or Dave, I know you've been with us for a while, or Enid May, you wanna help us out? Rebecca?
I actually came
Go
for,
ahead.
excuse me, a little different purpose. Oh my gosh, I got a frog in my throat. That is, I really came to thank you. I want to thank Shira and Alki and Vern for this meeting, okay? Because it is unusual, it's unique, it's special because of the opportunity to ask these questions, as Shira mentioned. But the responses are very considerate, they're very understanding, and this is a wealth of information these three people have, and they're very generous of their time. It's made a difference to me, and whenever I had a burning question, then that's when I tuned in, okay? So I'm starting a new job. But I don't want to take away from other people's question time, but I have some lessons learned which may or may not be the what other people have experienced that I might like to get to for just a couple minutes later on, if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely, Dave. Well, we're delighted that you had such a good experience with us, and congratulations for your new opportunity. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Kartikeya?
Kartike.
Kartike?
Hi.
Good morning. Welcome. How can we help you?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. So this is my first time attending this event. A friend of mine recommended just 2 days ago, and I'm excited to be here.
Good.
I have a question around my job search. So I'm an immigrant and I'm on a visa. So I have a timeline of until like June to find a job. I graduated last year from NC State with an MBA. And before that, I was in India. I worked for like close to 8+ years. So I wanted to understand, given the timeline that I have, what is the best possible strategy to utilize this time most effectively to find a job?
That's a huge question. I wish we had 5 hours for you. Yeah, I'm not sure if we.
I wish you had more time.
Yeah, look, everyone on this call is looking for a full-time job, right? And everybody's got different strategies. So I'm not sure if we can answer the question that you asked in the way that you asked it. What I can say is that during the course of this call, hopefully you're going to get different pieces of advice around how anybody should pursue their job search, right? And we can't really help you necessarily with the June timeframe, but depending upon your situation, we can help you. So maybe one question might be, you said that, and I'm not a visa expert, but until June, you're authorized, do you need to get an employer to sponsor you? Is that what it is?
No, so sponsorship can be done in the next year, but until June, I must have a paid job, or which is like a full-time or part-time.
Can it be anything? Like, it can be even working in retail or a restaurant? It could be anything.
No, I cannot do that because I need to justify my education.
Oh, I see. You have to have something that relates to the field that the education, the academic background that you have.
Yeah. And what was the degree in?
I did MBA in product innovation and marketing.
I see.
Okay.
Have you been networking within the product innovation world? I mean, have you been using LinkedIn to do any networking?
Yes, I've been using that extensively. In the last 3 months or so, I've connected with a lot of people. But the challenge that I'm facing is getting that first interview call.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's a lot of moving parts, of course, to job search, right? That's why we, it would take us probably hours to help your particular situation. But what's very important, and I'm going to, by the way, just so for the new people who are on this call, anytime myself or Alki or Vern, addresses a question, we're going to try to answer it for everybody, because everybody probably has some sort of, relation to the question. One of the things that I always say on this call, I sound a bit like a broken record, but I have to keep saying it, is that, employers are risk averse, okay? Meaning that they are looking to fulfill their business needs, right? You have your career needs, they have their business needs, which means that everything about your brand, your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your networking strategies, your interviews, all of it needs to speak to the problems that you're able to solve for an employer. And especially when you have a particular employer, a particular job that you are applying for that has very specific requirements, your resume needs to speak to those needs. So you don't want to have just a generic resume. I'm going to say this for everybody here, okay? Generic resumes are a thing of the past. You can start with a generic resume that you can maybe send to colleagues, but every single time that you apply for any job, that resume must be customized. I'm letting that hang in the air. It must be customized. And one of the major ways to customize is by having keywords that are highlighted that speak to those responsibilities. So let me tell you what I'm not suggesting, okay? I'm not just suggesting that you take your accomplishment stories and within those accomplishment stories, you tweak some words. Guess what? No one's going to see that, because recruiters scan, they don't read. Let me say that again. Recruiters scan, they don't read. So what you need to do is you need to have accomplishment stories, those little bullets, right? To the left of that bullet, you need to have bolded labels. And I'm going to actually show you an example. I've shown this example before. I happen to be a resume writer and a LinkedIn profile writer. And so I'm just going to show you a sample of what I do. And you want something that's similar to this. Okay. So right here, you'll notice, first of all, there are competencies up top, but most importantly, there are competencies that are labeled next to every accomplishment. Do you see these right here?
Mhm.
That's what I'm talking about. Those labels matter because that makes it very easy for the recruiter to scan down the page, 2 seconds, and that label should be customized for the position. So in the qualifications section of that job announcement, it'll mention different kinds of skills that they want you to have. That's where you take your accomplishment stories and make sure that the labels match down the page. In addition, right up here, you want to have a career headline. This can change for different jobs. You want to use similar language to the language of that job or the language of that job title. So product, maybe in your case, Cartier, it's aspiring product innovation specialist. I don't know, something like that, right? But you use the term product innovation there because that's going to resonate. This is your resume becomes like an advertising document or a billboard. Very quick and easy, right? You want people to just whoosh, run right by and quickly see, oh yes, we need to give him an extra look. Then if they put you in what we call the A pile, there's the A pile, B pile, and C pile, right? We put you in the A pile, which means that now you're among a group of candidates that they want to look at a little more deeply, then maybe they'll go a little more deep into your accomplishments. But in terms of just catching their attention, you need to have the keywords that pop off the page. Does that help? That really could help you just at least get noticed. Good? Okay, good. Excellent. All right, so that's kind of how this rolls. All right, so who else has a question? I think Rebecca, you would open your mic.
Yeah, and this is related somewhat to what you're talking about in terms of resumes and the LinkedIn profile and customizing those. So just a little background. So I'm an editor, writer, publisher, and I'm looking for jobs in that realm. But I'm also I'm finding sort of other things that I think I could definitely do that, that my skills could translate. So for example, I applied for a job for the federal government that there's so many that I can't remember which title this was, but it was something on the order of administrative specialist, something like that. And it did have like specific requirement of you have to have demonstrated that you provided administrative support. And so when you're talking about the labels, like it'd be great if I could put administrative support as one of those bolded labels, but it's not really true. So this is where I'm struggling to, I'm trying to sort of finesse the resume so that it appears that these things are there without actually saying that they are, because you don't want to be specifically for the federal government, because they make you check a box that says I certify that this is all true, or and if
You
it's
don't want
not,
to
we will
embellish, for
find you
sure.
and kill you.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me just quickly address the federal government. So first of all, neither me nor Alki nor Vern are federal government resume specialists. That's the first caveat, okay? That's not our background, we're private sector. But I say that because writing a resume for the federal government is a very, very particular adventure, okay? There are coaches, resume writers who specialize just in that. In fact, the one that I typically refer people to is Corliss Jackson. It's Corliss at federaljobresults.com. Corliss, Corliss, at federaljobresults.com. She is and her team are experts in helping folks land. In fact, her big claim to fame is that many years ago, she helped a jewelry store manager get into the federal government because what she's able to do is sort of pull out all of the skills that a person has and write it in a way that the federal government can hear. And I'm not kidding when I say this, the federal government on those resumes, they want to know every time you tie your shoelaces. It's a very, 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 very different resume than the private sector. So it's not even about the keywords that I just mentioned. They like these big paragraphs, and you have to like explain everything. But to your point, of course, you don't want to embellish. But then again, look at what Corliss did. She was a jewelry store. That woman was a jewelry store manager. She pulled out, she did inventory and budgets and all these different things that were related. She was able to talk about and expand on what the woman did do that was directly related to what they needed. Okay. So there is a way to do it effectively and authentically. Again, Corliss's team is probably in a better position to help you with that. With that said, I'm going to kind of springboard off of something that you just mentioned, because what you're actually talking about is a career pivot. All right. So is anybody here, quickly raise your hand, or is anybody here looking to do any sort of career pivot? Maria? Yeah, we know. Okay. Mark, just a little bit. Well, if this is at all appealing to you, what I will share is that there are likely skills that are hidden within your background that you can highlight. So there's this concept I call it, it's going to sound funny, but it'll make sense in a second. I call it ing versus ing versus So ing is the skill, is the profession. So writing versus writer, event planning, event planner, right? So we all have a bunch of ing skills in our background. Like most people have writing and all these different things, right? But just because you have writing doesn't mean you want to be a writer, okay? With that said, Rebecca, you have, and I think you and I had had a private conversation around this, right? That you've had some administrative skills, right? So that's an ing, like it's sort of buried. And if you're thinking about being an administrative assistant, right, which would be the profession of that, your goal is to pull out and to highlight whatever ing skills you do have, so that in totality, it has that flavor. So my one example that I like to share is that many years ago, I was coaching somebody who was an attorney, and he didn't want to be an attorney anymore, but he actually wanted to become a writer. So I pulled out of his resume all of his writing skills, right? And then created a LinkedIn profile that talked about why he likes to write and the type of, writing he likes to do. He ended up getting a job as a journalist with a legal trade publication. So, right. So he shifted into an but he kept what the sector, he kept the legal sector. They were happy with that, but he was able to shift his lane, what I call his lane. Okay. So there are ways to do it, but you have to be very thoughtful and intentional to extract all of the different ing skills that you have that are related to the that you want to do. Does that make sense? And I know I've been talking a lot. Alki or Vern, do you have other things to share?
I just wanted to follow up with Rebecca a little bit. So is what Shira just said accurate? You said you're trying to get into the federal government in an administrative role. But your resume now has writer and editor and all the other things you've done. But is that the direction that you do want to go to?
Well, I could see myself doing that. I have applied for other jobs in the federal government that haven't haven't landed, that are like they have a position, writer/editor. I've applied for several of those. They're all different, of course. They mean totally different things depending on the office, but I'm still waiting on one of them, I think, but I had one that they told me I wasn't eligible, and I was able to contact the person, ask why, and it was because I've never worked with the federal government's style manual.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Shira
Which I
said
wouldn't have,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the federal government is an animal unto itself.
It
I
is.
was when I was career coaching, I was working with a client who got an offer from the federal government a year after he applied.
Yeah.
He already
Heard
had a
about that
job.
happening too. Yeah.
It's
It
not
was
a
like
light thing.
a year later, they offered him the job. This is just bizarre. But
Yeah. And then going through the USA jobs where it says, you have to rank your skills 1 to 5 and X, and if you don't rank 5, then they kick you out. I mean, there's a whole art and a science to this. So
Mhm.
again, if you're interested, Corliss, her team can, help you navigate if that's something that's interesting to you.
That's great. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. But with that said, and for anybody here who's kind of expansive in your search, where you're like, oh, I could do this, I could do that. You want to try to focus as much as possible. Employers get a little bit confused when people are all over the place. You might think that you're just being open-minded and you're trying to, consider everything, but for them, it's brand confusion. People like to hire specialists, not generalists, right? They like to hire the plumber, not just the general handyman when you have a leaky faucet, okay? And so to the extent that you can really narrow in and have a brand on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile, in your networking, letting everybody know I'm looking for this. People can think of you. Employers feel much more safe, like, oh, the person knows what they want. They're going to be committed. They're going to be less of a risk. They're going to be all in it, right? Rather than kind of having all these different areas. So Rebecca, to the extent that you can kind of pick your lane and feel settled in that, that's going to be helpful just in your own search so that employers understand that, yeah, she really wants to do X versus Y. Because of course, the publishing and the admin are very different things.
Mhm.
So if you can kind of hone in, that can be really helpful.
Thank you.
And it's work. I don't think either of us would lie. Well, we wouldn't lie to you all, but it's work. This market right now, and even in the last several weeks, it just seems like the theme of what I'm seeing, and I've been telling candidates, I don't think I've ever seen a market like this before in my 13 years. And COVID was an anomaly, but there are so many candidates and job seekers in the market who are applying for jobs. It's a complete employer's market. So they are being extremely picky right now, because it used to be for us as recruiters, we could look up and go, okay, there's a few good handful of people who actually would qualify. And then the rest are all duds, 100 other duds who don't qualify or don't have the background. Now it's multiplied. Everything is multiplied. And so to tie both of what you just talked about together, when he said, June, on the one hand, I think Vern's joke too was, oh man, you got time in this market. Most people they need a job today. And I was thinking too, okay, good. You've got until June to kind of not be stressed and pressured over finding something, but now you also now have a requirement that you have to meet, which now shrinks the funnel back down. So the stuff that Shira's talking about, customizing, it's work and it takes time, especially if you're customizing for all the jobs there's high competition for. So it's like, on the one hand, customizing is great, but you're also spending a lot of time doing it, and jobs one by one, they're just getting filled with applicant after applicant. So it's kind of a sacrifice and a choice, just to say, you know what, I have to be focused. I want to go down this road and be focused and customize my resume to this. If the market is super saturated and you're like, this, and I'm talking to a lot of people who are pivoting too, because they're like, I can't find a job in my field, so I have to pivot. It just means you now have to try and come up with another resume that you have to super duper customize to stand out from everybody. So we won't lie, it's work, but it's probably better. It's better for you to customize and focus and brand whatever you apply to, because you have to remember there's a lot of other people who are just like you, potentially better, more qualified. And that's why we always talk about going, side door, back door to meet somebody and network internally first.
Right.
Lots of ways to do this.
Yeah.
Hope that helps, Rebecca. Vern, any other thoughts?
No, I'm interested to hear what Elke just said about the job market right now. I don't remember, something that dramatic in my years of recruiting, which obviously makes it tougher for anybody who's searching for a job right now. There's lots of competition out there, so it's just, as Elke said, it's even more important to figure out how do you stand out, how do you and we've talked about this a lot, finding a champion. In other words, so your resume goes into the organization. Is there someone that you have in LinkedIn who you can connect with, who might know someone in the company who could, contact either the person in the company or the hiring manager, maybe, to say, you really ought to take a look at John Jones's resume. He's somebody I know, I can vouch for. And to Shira's point about employers being risk averse, when someone that they know and they trust and they like is advocating for you, then that might just give you the one little inch up where you're going to at least get the interview now, as opposed to, when, as recruiters, we get lots of resumes. We, as Shira says, A pile, B pile, C pile. But then even in the A pile, not everybody gets the interview. And the whole, objective here is you got to get to the interview before you get to the offer.
Right.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
One last thing, I know we got a lot of people too. To Vern's point, I just did it yesterday with someone. It was positive and a little bit negative, because they applied for a role and they found somebody in my contact list and asked me if I knew him. I didn't, but I reached out to him. And so what I probably got him was quicker feedback, because the next day he told me he heard from them, whereas he had been waiting before. So that's the positive, is that I pinged someone and said, hey, somebody that I know applied, took a look at his resume, and she was like, well, if he's a fit, we'll contact him. He let me know the next day, well, hey, that was quick. A quick rejection is what he meant. So he didn't get the interview, but what he didn't have to do was wait forever to get feedback. But he said it himself, like, wow, that was quick.
Yeah.
Much quicker than just applying and waiting forever to possibly hear nothing back. So
That's right. Leverage your network. I mean, it happens to me a lot. People will always ask me, oh, sure, I noticed on LinkedIn you're connected to so-and-so, and I'll ping, here and there. I actually did that for somebody on this call yesterday. And so, that you never know. You never know. In fact, actually, it was interesting in the case, I'm not going to mention who the person was. They know who I'm talking about. But yesterday the person said, oh, sure, I noticed you know somebody at the blah, blah organization. Well, I did have a first level connection, but what it turns out is that I actually had a second level connection who was the head of human resources. I didn't know that. And I was able to send that person a note. I mean, it just happened yesterday, so we'll see if he got it. But, I was able to say to the person, hi, so-and-so. And it turns out, because that person was in human resources and I play in the human resources space, I was able to say, hey, I'm connected to like these three people that we both know. Vern, Sharon Armstrong was one of them. And I was able to say, oh, we have these connections. So, maybe that'll help. But I just put in a good word for this person, and we'll see, if that actually, happens. But the point is, you never know who's in your network that could take an extra step and help you out. So definitely go to LinkedIn. And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about here in terms of how to find these people, so if you have applied for a job, go to LinkedIn, into the search bar in the upper left-hand corner, pop in the name of the organization and hit enter. that organization's LinkedIn, not their website, but their LinkedIn page is going to show up. Actually, you know what? Rather than me saying it verbally, let me go ahead and just pull it up and show you what I'm talking about. This is sort of a multi-step process here. Okay. Not sure why that's happening. What's going on? Guys, come on. Okay. Sorry, I don't know why this is happening. Oh, my computer's having a mind of its own. All right, come back. All right, perfect. All right. So let's just pretend that the organization you want to go, that you've just applied to is the American Red Cross. Okay. So I would actually, there's two ways to do this. You can actually just put the name in, or do you see how the first drop down has their logo? This is the page I was actually talking about. This is their LinkedIn page. And so I would tap on that. And right here, you see where it says 10,000 employees? This actually is hyperlinked. You can tap on it. And then what I would do, there's the people button is already highlighted. These are the people who work there. And then right here in the search bar, we're already in the search. Now I'm going to do a sub search. And so I'm going to put in what I believe to be the, maybe the title of the hiring manager, for example. So let's say I'm applying for a director of marketing role. I'm going to put in, let's just say, VP of marketing. You can try to figure out what the title is. You can play around a little bit. And sure enough, here we go. So this woman, Kamena, is the VP of business marketing. I'm making this up. Maybe I figured out that would be the title, right? But I noticed that she's a second level. So I click on her profile and I notice that I happen to have 5 connections. So this Elizabeth, Elaine, and 3 other mutual connections. I tap on that. And then here are all the people who I'm mutually connected with. I would pick one of those people. I'd start with one who I know best, who I think would do me a favor. And I would reach out and I would do it 2 ways because people don't check their LinkedIn a lot. So I would message them just in case they do see it. And then I would email the person. So because I'm first level connected, that's how I can actually usually get the person's contact information. So I would click on Elizabeth, and because she's first, I can go here to contact info, and 9 times out of 10, here we go. Her email is going to show up. Once in a while, somebody's so private that they don't even want even their first levels to see their email address, so that may not show up, but usually it's there. I'd write her an email and I'd send her a message and I would say, hi, Elizabeth, hope all's well. I noticed on LinkedIn that you're connected to Kamena, so-and-so, right? I've recently applied for the director of marketing job, right, the Red Cross. Would you consider forwarding my application to her for extra consideration? For extra consideration. In fact, that's actually what I did on behalf of my colleague yesterday, is I've said to that human resources person, would you give that person extra consideration? That's a good phrase to use, extra consideration. And that's it. And you're just asking that person to refer you. You're not necessarily asking them to recommend you, because if they've never worked with you, they may not be able to recommend you, but they can at least get your resume notice for extra consideration. And you can have multiple people do that. You don't just have to do it for one person. Have 5 people do it. Then the hiring manager is like, okay, I'll meet her. Like you can be the squeaky wheel. That's totally fine. So multiple people is just fine.
Well, and again, that goes back to if I'm the hiring manager and I'm hearing from 5 different people in my network about a particular candidate, it's giving me more confidence that, wow, these people are, well, then they may not be recommending. They're, would you consider them for extra consideration? It's still giving me some level of confidence that this person is you know, first of all, the resume has to be qualified, but some level of confidence that, wow, this is somebody I probably should talk to. If all of these people know this person, and think I should talk to this person, then that may get you into the interview pool.
You never know. Want to get squeaky wheel, just keep on having people push your name forward. You're just trying to get noticed. It's a very crowded market. That's the only reason why we're telling you to do this, is because there are so many people pushing in on the same job. You want somebody to airlift your resume out and flag you and say, you really should talk to this person. And then your job, of course, is to do well in the interview, but at least you want to get noticed. And that's half the reason why a lot of people don't get the interviews, is just because you're not being noticed. You know, you've applied on the job board, and job boards are usually the worst way to get jobs. People don't realize that. Job boards only work 10% of the time. Let me say that again. Job boards only work 10% of the time. You think that's the only way you're supposed to apply. That's not true. When you apply on a job board, that employer is getting inundated with people, most of whom are not even qualified. In fact, I'll give you a real live example. Just the other day, I was on a networking call. I run a CEO roundtable for a bunch of association people. And one of the women, Wanda, we were talking about this. She's the employer. She's the employer. And she said, I've just given up. I don't post my jobs on LinkedIn anymore. 95% of the people I get are not qualified. It's overwhelming. I go these other routes. And that's normal. That's perfectly normal. Most people don't understand that. I know Alky's shaking his head. It's true. Employers are fed up because they are overwhelmed with people from all over the country, all over everywhere that are not qualified for the role, and they're overwhelmed. They don't know what to do, and so they just stop using it, and they go to what's called the hidden network. And the hidden network are their colleagues, people they trust in their network, and they say, "Hey, everybody, do you know of anybody that's qualified?" And that's who they go to, which means you need to be doing a lot of networking so that you show up in the hidden network. You need to be networking with people who do what you do. Let me say that again. You need to network with people who do what you do. Why? Because if they hear about an opportunity that's not right for them, it could be right for you. If you're a project manager, if you're a marketing professional, if you're an accountant, if you're a human resources professional, whatever you are, network with the people who do what you do. Because we recruiters are reaching out to your colleagues and saying, "Hey, Frank, hey, Enid May, hey, do you know of anybody for this job?" And Enid May goes, "Oh, it's not right for me, but it's right for my colleague, Rebecca." Because Rebecca and Enid May are now in each other's network. Okay. Hugely important to go find the people who do what you do. And you can do that through LinkedIn. Again, use that search bar, type in the title, your title, the thing that you do, and start looking for people who do it and start reaching out and networking, connecting with them, seeing if they'd be open to a Zoom call. You're looking to expand your network with other colleagues who are in your space. Some of those people might say yes. And even if they don't agree to a Zoom call, at least you're in their network now, hopefully. And again, when they hear something that's not right for them, it could be right for you. I can make a song about that. Okay, really, it's just incredibly important because we recruiters go with the birds of a feather concept. We assume that people in a similar profession or in a similar industry hang out together because that's just the way communities work. So do make that the 90% of your job search, and only 10% of your job search is the job board. Does that make sense?
Which is a paradigm, and it almost sounds blasphemous, but it's really not new to us, but I'm finding it's new foreign language to the job seekers that we're talking to. Most people are figuring it out though, like, hey, I applied, 8 months ago, 6 months ago, 4 weeks ago. I haven't heard anything back, and I've applied to 130 jobs. Alki, I've heard from one, I've heard from two, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But it's for everybody associated with DC or knows about DC, it's like pulling out of your driveway and you live close to the Beltway, and you can see from your driveway what the Beltway looks like before you get on it. If it's jam-packed, why get on it? If you have another route, you take the other route because you're like, this is pointless. There's no need to get on. And it's the same way with the job search. Is unless it was posted an hour ago, maybe 3 hours ago, 4 hours ago, maybe 12, 24 hours is the limit. It used to be for us like, 3 days, you got time, 7 days, you got time. If it's been posted for a day, and you all probably know this now, there's a good chance that there's already 100, 2, 4, 3,
That's
700 people already that have applied within a day of 48 hours. So what we're talking about is, and I told somebody else earlier in the week, this week, I did a connection thing for, and I was really just trying to explain to her, you just told me about 6 jobs you applied for. Thankfully, she was hearing from some of them, but she had a lot of other ones that she wasn't hearing from. And I made a ping for her with the director of talent act, and she responded right away saying, hey, yeah, send me her info and I'll pass it over to one of my recruiters. Even if it's not a job, making those connections is what's important. And that's the new paradigm shift, is looking for a job. Like Shira said, 10%. I'll stick with that because I don't want to shock the world too much, but I've been telling candidates almost, don't apply. Or try this first. Or if you do apply, set your expectations that you may not hear anything back. Just do it because of the 10%. Like Shira said, you never know what's going to happen. They may call you back, but do not put your expectations in that 10% so much that you're going to hear something back. The chances are is you're going to be stuck in traffic. So go ahead and find another route. And then if you get a phone call while you're taking your other route, great. But I've been telling candidates, try something different. I think the market's going to settle down at some point later this year, maybe, but right now it's super saturated. And so if you are going to apply, you need to apply knowing there's a good chance I'm not going to hear anything back. So let me just toss this quarter into the fountain, hoping that, maybe something good happens to me, and then keep it moving in my job search with other methods and other means and other ways. You get more return on your investment from this type of networking that we're talking about, because it may not be a job. They may call you back 4 weeks later saying, hey, where's your resume? Remember we talked? That guy, he was on vacation. He just got back to me. That other position closed, but they're opening a new one just like it, and they haven't posted it yet. And that's what Shira was talking about.
And one thing I just want to highlight, oh, sorry, Brian, real quick. So Alki said, oh, in 24, 48 hours, there's like 100, 200 candidates. The reason why that is the case right now, that is especially true for fully remote positions. Fully remote positions. This is a post-COVID phenomenon. And I'm making up this number. I don't know this to be true, but I'm going to say that at least 50% of all jobs in this country are fully remote. That's how it feels to me. Okay. Could be more or less, but it's a lot of jobs. And if the job is fully remote, that might feel wonderful to you. Oh, I could work anywhere. Guess what? That means anybody can apply from anywhere. Your competition is 10x. Truly, it's 10x. And so, you have to understand that suddenly everybody can apply for this job, not just you in your local geography. Now, the reverse is also true. If you are applying for a local job, a hybrid job, your competition goes down, because a lot of people don't want to work hybrid. A lot of people just want to work remote. And so now the employer, they have a bit of a challenge finding people who are local, who want to work local, and who want to come into the office 2 or 3 days a week. So if you can find a hybrid job that's appropriate, you actually have a little bit of a better chance.
I don't know if everybody can read the tagline to the contacts count logo that's behind me, but it talks about the power of human connection, and that's really what we're talking about here. And to the point that we're making here, the last 3 jobs in my career came from the hidden job market.
That's right.
I was actually not looking for a job, and people in my network called me and said, hey, I saw this opportunity. You might be interested in it. And in all 3 cases, I found out about the job. I was interested in it, and I left the former job and went to the next job. But I didn't, in my mind, if you've got, and that network then continues to serve you throughout your whole career. So it's one of the most powerful things that you can do in terms of advancing your career, in terms of job security, in terms of, finding out about opportunities, going forward. So again, Elke, Shira, and I are like broken records. network.
It's true. It's true. Letitia, I know you had something in the chat. Are you able to come off onto voice and explain and share your elaborate on your question a little bit?
Hey everyone, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, like when I started to look for a job, I work as a product designer at Dell, but I'm looking for a full remote position right now because Dell is coming back to hybrid. So I started asking for like connections with like recruiters, and then after I say, yeah, I'm a 5-year experienced product designer, the answers increased. So I don't know what else can I do or say, like specifying like I want a remote job, or those kind of um, details maybe.
So there's
The
your
approach.
side and then there's their side, right? There's two sides to this equation. On your
Yeah.
side, if working remotely is absolutely a must-have for you, then on your side, you need to say to them, I'm looking for a fully remote product design position. So at least they know we can't consider her for hybrid. So that's if that's a requirement for you, definitely say that. That's for your needs. For their needs, your job is to go through that job announcement, that job description, particularly look at the qualifications section. If there are some very specific skills that they are requiring, or even if they say strongly preferred, which almost means required these days, and you happen to have them, you want to let them know. So you say, I'm a product designer with the ABC skill that you mentioned, or ABC certification that they mentioned. So at least it pops off the page to them, especially in the tech world. And Ackley, I think you can speak to this much better than I do, because I think I don't really do tech search, you do tech search. Where tech skills are so important. So what sets you apart from other candidates? Well, first of all, you really want to make their requirements, but especially if they have some extra things that are really ideal, a plus that you happen to have. Again, like, oh, I also have XYZ skill, right? So meaning you want to check the boxes for the things that the frosting on the cake. They want the cake, but you've got some frosting. Oh, I also have
Amazing.
the frosting. Does that make sense? So anything that's going to make you stand out, not just A, meet the requirements, but B, stand out from the competition, you'll want to showcase that.
It's amazing, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, agreed. Standing out, even though we talk about all this traffic that's happening out here, whether it was now, COVID, before COVID, standing out to recruiters and employers is what it's all about. Those are the people that they hire. Now, sometimes they hire a friend or an internal candidate or whatever, but at the end of the day, this race to the finish is about who stands out. It may start with who's qualified. That's how we get into pile A first, is who's qualified and who looks impressive. As it narrows down, it's all about who stands out. That's what that final decision, when we're talking to employers on, hey, you got two candidates at the end of the day, which one are you going to choose? When we get to that offer point and that decision point, a lot of times it's fit, it could be money, a lot of other things like that. But at the end of the day, what they don't want to sacrifice is the person who stands out, unless, again, there's something, a real caveat, like, hey, he's the best candidate, but this person has worked with the system that we want to use. But even with that, they stand out. And so kind of reverse processing this for somebody who's writing a resume, you're writing your resume or applying for a new job or recustomizing your resume, which is why Shira showed that part at the top. You want to stand out at the top of your resume. That's where you want to push everything that stands out, everything that you've done at the bottom and all those years. You want to try to stand out from the pile, because if you can imagine, it's like us looking through, a pile of resumes this thick. We're flipping the top part of the page and we're seeing who stands out, and that's how we're doing. Swipe right, page, group A, B, and C, those piles. But we're looking for who stands out, and then we narrow down. So anything that you can do to stand out once you meet the qualification does nothing but help you in our eyes, because we're trying to come up with a pile of the people who stand out the most. And so, and this is kind of basic resume writing for me with people is, hey, yeah, you move chairs, you mop floors, but how fast can you do it in 10 seconds? Like, that's what stands out. Everybody mops floors and pushes chairs under, but if you can do it in a fast amount of time, or if you have a certification that nobody else has, that's what stands out. And you need to push all those things to the top of your resume so that you stand out and you get put in that A pile.
To underscore that, and Ganesh, I do see your hand, is when Alki talks about standing out, what he's really saying is, again, going back to minimizing the employer's risk, who is going to have the shortest learning curve? Who is going to be able to fit in with this organization? Who best understands our constituents, our customers, our members, our whomever? I want to give you a practical example on my desk right now. Okay, here we go. Hot off the recruiter's press. So I have been doing a search for a vice president of government affairs. For anybody of you who knows the association world, we have lobbyists, right? Okay, fine. Everybody who goes on Capitol Hill and lobbies for their issue. So in this particular case, this organization actually, amazingly, did not give me hard and fast requirements. I mean, the employer kind of had some parameters, you know, but did not say to me, oh, the person must have this background, that. I was shocked. I was like, really? You actually giving me some latitude here? That's amazing. Well, as it turns out, when I did my recruiting, which by the way, I did not post this job on LinkedIn, meaning I didn't go to the job board. I went to my own LinkedIn network and I recruited. I've sent out notes to all the different kinds of people who were in this sector. Well, sure enough, I got a lot of very, very qualified candidates, really qualified candidates. Now, here's my story. They were so qualified that people who actually would have fit the broad requirements that my client wanted would have been, they were no longer okay, because I can't send in 50 people. I had to start doing some narrowing. So I had to start picking the people who were the closest fit to what they do, the sector that they're in, the issues that the person would be working on, all of these different things. And we got narrow and narrow and narrow. I got to 6 people who are really like, right? Then they did the interviews. And all these 6 people were qualified to do the job, every single one of them. But then there were 3 people who had the extra, right? And in fact, they're the 4th person, the person who's sort of the runner up to the 3. My client said, well, so-and-so, they were great, but you know, they just had a little bit less trade experience than these 3. Talk about niche, right? That 4th person was perfectly qualified, but the other 3 people, I kind of like it to the Olympics. That one did the quad and the other one did the triple toe loop, right? Very, very subtle. You never know in that process what your competition is like. You could be qualified, but the person who's got the extra quad, right? He has the 9.7, you know, from the judges as opposed to the 9.5. That's the person who likely get the job. Why? Because the employer feels that they're minimizing their risk, minimizing the learning curve. Someone who's going to slide in, nobody has time to train anymore. That's the problem, right? Everybody's busy. Everybody's wearing 3 hats. And employers just don't have time to train. And they want it to be as smooth and easy of a fit as possible. Do you understand their sector? Do you know the job? Do you have the quals? That's what they're looking for as much as possible. But with that said, sometimes the opposite happens. Let's say it's a very, very niche thing that they're looking for, and there are hardly any candidates that fit that. Then the employer goes the other way and they start to stretch. Or maybe they're in a location now here in the DC area, we have a lot of, you know, high caliber talent. Let's say you're in a small town and that employer is like, oh my gosh, I can't find the people who are going to actually qualify. There just isn't a whole, just the population's very small there. Then the employer will go the other way and say, well, now I'm flexible. Okay, now I'll take somebody who's just even remotely close to this job because I just can't find the candidates. So part of that also depends on the city that you're applying to. If you're here in the DC region, tends to be a lot of competition. Major cities the same way. Smaller towns much less so if the position is local. If it's remote, that's different. But if it's local, then there tends to be more flexibility and they're usually open to be a little more creative with the kind of candidates that they consider. Does that help? All right, Ganesh.
And the judges are really strict right now because it's an employer market.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Hello, Shira. I attended your Career Network Ministry presentation about 10 days back.
Oh, good.
So that's why I'm back here.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, my question is, are the cover letters outdated or still relevant?
We have a speech on that. I should play my recorder. So, sort of, yes and no. I'm gonna say a sentence, but I'm gonna say it twice, and I'm gonna say it differently. Okay. So number 1, cover letters are only read 2% of the time. Next sentence. Because cover letters are only read 2% of the time, they are read 2% of the time. Therefore, if you're going to write one, write a good one. So for the 2% of the people who actually read them, they're really reading them. So if you're going to do one, don't just do one that's generic, that you could send to anybody. Be thoughtful. Don't write 2 pages, but be thoughtful around why you're interested in the role, maybe your alignment with the mission, highlight specific skills that are related to the job. Some people do a little table where they'll say, your
like goodness of it, like a goodness of it.
your fit, like
Yeah.
your requirements, my qualifications, boom, 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 boom. That's one way to do that, right? But the point is that if you're going to be thoughtful, look at what they want, make sure you're highlighting what they have. But something else about cover letters is that if you're going to do a cover letter, this is important. Don't miss an opportunity to put your qualifications in your resume. Because some people will say, well, I didn't put it in my resume, but I'm going to put it in the cover letter. Most people don't read cover letters. So you can't assume anymore that they're going to see that. Your resume has to stand on its own 2 feet. Your cover letter is the frosting on the cake. It'll maybe highlight some areas where you're skilled and passion, and maybe you're a career changer and you want to make a note about that or whatever, something like that. But don't assume that they're going to read it. Because remember back in the day, a lot of us are old enough to remember when we had to lick the envelope. Anybody remember licking the envelope? Yeah. Yeah. We put the cover letter on top. It was a hard copy. You put the cover letter on top of the resume. That's the first thing they see. Oh, it's a cover letter. Read, read, read. Flip the page. Then they read the resume. They don't do that anymore. It's a separate document. They go to the resume first. So cover letter should be a complement, but it's not the meat itself.
Thank you.
But and make sure no typos.
Yeah.
No typos. Periods, semicolons, commas, spell the name of the person correctly. And by the way, I know there's been a common trend these days for a lot of people to take 2 sentences and put a comma in between them. It really needs a period. That's the editor in me. So if you're writing that way, no, make sure you have a sentence with a period. Start a new sentence. It's been a little bit of a trend anyway.
Yeah, in fact, there is a tools like Grammarly and others they can do and check, right? Auto check.
They can, but you still need to use your eyes.
I know we need
It
to be
doesn't
careful.
always,
Always have a second read. Yeah.
Which, by the way, we don't really talk about ChatGPT here very much, but if any of you are trying to do cover letters and resumes and LinkedIn profiles with ChatGPT, you can start that way. Please edit it. Please make sure that they're not saying things that you don't do. There was somebody who used to be on this call and she privately showed me, I'm like, but you don't do those things. She didn't even think about it because ChatGPT made it sound beautiful, but it's not accurate. It's got to be accurate. Really,
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah,
check
I'll
it.
give an example. Like I was just experimenting. I worked in Amgen as an IT executive there. In Amgen, it's a biotech company. ChatGPT said I found a molecule. I found a medicine. So I never did.
You still have to use your own brain, okay?
Yeah.
It might be a little bit of a lump of clay, but you've got to mold that thing. Okay. Yeah. Maria?
The other thing I'll add
Sorry.
is when I was in every HR job I had and when I was recruiting, I required a cover letter. So I'm one of those 2%. And I would look in the cover letter for the typos. I would look, for the spelling. I'd look for how they wrote. Sometimes, again, or as Shira said, a really good cover letter would catch my attention. The person would say something in that cover letter that, kind of added to their resume, something that they put in that cover letter stood out for me. So, again, and I always used to tell them, only 2% read it, but as the job seeker, you don't know if you're applying to one of the companies where it's one of the 2%, right? So, it can be an additional way to impress a company.
Maria?
Sharon, it's nice to see all of you again. It's been a while. I just had a quick question. Well, actually, I want to ask if, just want to confirm that I'm understanding correctly from what Aki said, with the job market being so tight and being in a way that it's not that you've not seen in a long time. I think you said Alki. So am I correct in assuming that the reason for that is, well, I was wondering, because there's so many people applying, is that why um, the job market is tougher than it's been in a long time? Or is it also because of so many remote jobs? Because if there's so many remote jobs available, then of course that decreases your chance of getting a job too. Or is there more to it than that?
It's all of the above and what we got in the back as well. It's a lot of things. And I'm sure everybody has a different answer. I haven't scientifically researched this, but by practicality, I've seen this. So you have the age range of generations now. So, maybe 10 years ago, there were kids in high school. Well, those kids have now graduated college, they're in the job market. COVID has done multiple things to this. COVID sent a lot of people to unemployment. Now they're out getting back to their industries and their careers. And then some of them are finding that, hey, it's not quite ready yet. Everybody hasn't opened up fully, so there's not as many jobs. So those people are pivoting. COVID made all of us think about, hey, I might need to pivot. So there's people who are pivoting. There's people who during COVID, it gave a lot of people courage and freedom to go, you know what? I'm going to apply for a job, work there for 2 weeks, and hey, who cares? It's a crazy world anyway. I'm going to quit in 2 weeks and go find another job that I like. So you have those people. You have people who got, again, more courage, like, hey, I don't have to be qualified. I'm just going to apply for this job. You also have managers who are hiring some of those people, giving them chances. So there's reason after reason after reason why there's more people in the market. And so it just makes it, I think until we settle, and I don't think we're going to
I hope he comes back.
No.
Well, in any event, oh, Alki, you there?
Is the mic on or?
No, I think
No, he's
he just froze.
Oh.
Well, and you got the idea, Maria, right? It's all of those things, and there's even a generational angle to this. It's not just the young people who are right coming en masse, but people are working a lot longer now. So you have people of all ages, all the way here, who are all sort of competing and converging. Back 30 years ago, you hit a certain age and you retire. That's not the case anymore, right?
Yes.
You've got lots and lots of people who are working till much later in life for all kinds of reasons, and everybody's sort of converging. So it does make it for just all in all a pretty tight market.
Thank you.
Sure. Before we end the call today, I do want to make sure we give Dave a chance to chime in here.
Yeah, thank you.
Because
Thank
we
you. Vern.
certainly want to congratulate you on landing the
Yeah.
job.
It's great.
And,
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would like to make a few comments. I'll try to make them brief. First of all, I focused a lot on LinkedIn for the first couple of months. I read the book Linked. I tried all that. Maybe it's partly because of the free version, and even I had premium for a month. I got almost nothing from that. I continued to go after job postings. Okay, I did that every week after week. I'd pick the most likely ones. I used the Google aggregator. Okay, that means I put in Google the title, jobs near, and the zip code. And then I'd see all this list of jobs. They're all similar to what I'm looking for. And it'll take me to Bebo or Dice or whatever. I did that consistently. Okay. Both my job offers came directly from that. I didn't know anybody at all on that. The LinkedIn, I think what helped on LinkedIn was I did put some more technical information in the introduction, and I turned the subtle switch on for recruiters to know that I was looking. Those were the main changes I made with that. I always use the same resume. First one wasn't great, but I got the first job offer from that one. And the second one I think was better. I did not modify it. Okay. I'm not trying to be contrarian. That's what happened. So how did I have two job offers? Well, one of them took 15 weeks for me to get a start date, and that was right around the time of the other one. And so I was able to very politely say to them, could you just slow up a little? And then I said to the other one, could you just speed up a little? And each one knew about the other one. And so I actually ended up having a choice. So I was very, open and respectful, and they were very accommodating on that.
That's great. Yeah.
But
So
I've learned,
yeah. Mhm.
but I've learned that you can have everything you want, but if you don't have a start date, I'm not sure you have much.
It's true that you need, yeah, you definitely need an acceptance and a title and a start date for it to all be official. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. Well, thank you
Mhm.
for that other
Yeah,
perspective, Dave.
congratulations.
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
Vern.
Yeah, and it's the type of job you were looking for, and what role is it exactly, Dave?
It's a specific type of programming,
Okay.
SaaS. Oh,
Okay.
and I also want to put an honorable mention. Okay, I didn't do this right away, but if my resume is on Indeed, recruiters can see my resume and send me an email and say, "Oh, I saw your resume. May I contact you?" Those recruiters were fine. Okay. The only ones I had a problem with were the ones that gave me cold calls. And it's a rhetorical question, but I think it's best not to put a phone number on resumes. I'm thinking that's maybe what I should do in the future, is just have an email and a LinkedIn.
Interesting.
Any comment on that?
Well, I absolutely recommend having a phone number just because it just makes it much easier. Like it for spam reasons alone. I know for myself, I've had plenty of my emails go into other people's spam because the spam filters are so strong these days. I'm thankful that I'm able to call the person and say, "Hey, did you get my email?" And in fact, it happened one time a few years ago when I was somebody I ended up placing. The guy did not get my email. It literally was in his spam folder. I texted him. He said, "Oh, it's in my spam folder." He ended up getting the job. But had he not had a phone number, I would not have been able to reach him. So from a recruiter's perspective, we really, really find it very, very helpful to have that phone number. On your side, could it cut down on people proactively calling you, spamming you? Sure. You're going to have to weigh that out. I would say on behalf of all recruiters, it's very helpful for us to reach you in case we can't find you.
Thank goodness I use Google Voice, which I'm about ready to dump, so then they
Okay.
won't have it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think I
and
might just,
the other thing too is, and you're in the tech space, and technical search is actually very different than just about any other kind of search. The way that recruiters go about that, everything you sort of talked about, I feel it's almost a bit of in its own ecosystem. And I know when I say tech, I mean it's a huge sector, but there's so much competition and so many recruiters that are looking for all these niche people, and it's a very kind of almost like a transactional kind of a world. And I think Alki can speak to it better than I can, but I think sometimes things which apply to the tech world are a little bit different outside of the tech world, just for what that's worth. So, but then again, try everything. I mean, we always recommend to customize your resume. We feel that it can help. In your case, you didn't need to. That's beautiful. I'm not saying that everybody has to, but to me, things like that can increase your chances. But it's true. All kinds of things can work for sure. Yeah. Well, we're so delighted, Dave, that you landed. You're welcome back anytime. Feel free to refer people back here. Yeah, God
I
bless you.
definitely would refer anyone to this group, of course.
Yeah, yeah, we're happy to help. Wonderful. Good, good, good. All right, so as we kind of wrap up here, any other last minute questions? And just remember, I know for those of you who are new, this is you know this already, but we're meeting every other Friday these days. Okay, so make sure that you've got that in your calendar. Not first and third, every other Friday. Okay, so that's going to vary in terms of the month. All right, so if unless we have anything else, well, I'll go ahead and close the formal part of this call. Anybody who would like to stay on to join me for a short prayer call, you're certainly welcome to do that. Okay. For everyone else, God bless you, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.